Hey, you guys, let's go.
My favorite thing about Bio Bay was the glowing fish and how they lit up when we paddled in the water. My favorite thing about the Bioluminescent Bay was that they could eat the protein leaves and get super big. My favorite thing about Bioluminescent Bay was that when we paddled and we touched the water, they glowed, and that their living creatures, the water living creatures, went down and they ate the fish and they grew bigger.
My favorite thing about Bioluminescent Bay in Puerto Rico, in Vieques, was honestly seeing the closest thing I imagine magic looks like here on Earth. Magical.
Bio Bay.
Whoa.
Okay, say my first trip to Bio Bay.
Whoa.
Say it was my first trip.
Whoa.
Okay. My favorite thing about Bio Bay was just that it was absolute magic.
Whoa.
All right, welcome to Diapers on a Plane. This is our vlogcast number 39, and today we are going to be talking to you. Yes, molasses has crackers. Yes, chocolate crackers. Okay. Today we are going to be talking to you about our trip to Puerto Rico, and more specifically,
Bioluminescent Bay.
yes, our Vieques Bio Bay Tour. Now, Gabriel and I actually went to San Juan long before any of these little rugrats joined our family. And it was back in,
Holy smokes, how long ago was that?
well, it was right after I started working for the airline.
2018?
I want to say
No.
like 2009?
2009 or 10.
9 or 10, yeah.
9 or 10. And we got caught. So I had just started working for the airline and I didn't know all the ins and outs of standby travel. And in fact, we will link to what you need to know about flying standby. But we didn't know all the ins and outs, and we had to fly through New York. And when we were in New York, the gate agent asked me if we would be willing to, I think, split up. And I thought that meant take different flights, which we didn't want to do. But I think he actually meant sit apart from each other, which we definitely would have done. But in any event, we got stuck in New York for the entire day, and by the time we got to San Juan, we had like less than 24 hours on the island. But it was cool because we went over the 4th of July.
Yeah, it was the night of the 4th of July was super fun there. It was actually a beautiful beach. We would have loved to stay there for 3 days, but we got to stay there for 1 day.
It was gorgeous. We had like this suite. It had like a gold telephone. This was not like a ritzy room, but it was a very nice room. But I just remember it had a gold telephone in the bathroom.
Well, and that was the first time, during that 24 hours, the first time that Catherine learned that there were bioluminescent bays there.
Right, yeah, we didn't know before we went.
There were brochures at our hotel, and Catherine was busy trying to find a way to make the 6-hour drive to one of these bioluminescent bays in Puerto Rico and still make it back like in time to go home. And I was like, no, sorry, can't do it.
It was also when we learned you do not buy or you do not rent a hotel before you get on the flight. And we've made that mistake again and again and again and again. But we shouldn't. We should know better.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
We had been wanting to get back to Puerto Rico because it's a beautiful island, but also I wanted to go on a bioluminescent bay tour. Now, when you work in the airline industry, a lot of things crop up a lot over and over and over again. You hear about people's travels, and the one thing that comes up over and over and over and over again is Bioluminescent Bay. Now, the reason we wanted to go back to San Juan and see Bioluminescent Bay is that they have the brightest bay in the entire world, and it is at Mosquito Bay, which is named after a pirate.
Yeah. So we always take a maternity trip as soon as our new baby hits like the 3-month mark and it's okay to go traveling. And so this was our maternity trip to Puerto Rico. This one right here was 3 months old, and so we took her to San Juan and then to the island of Vieques.
And we had a really hard time deciding where we wanted to go. I remember this. And ultimately, we just were really lazy about getting her a passport. And so,
Oh, that's right.
and so we ended up on San Juan, which wasn't like a concession prize. We had been wanting to go for a long time. I just did not want to go if we couldn't go to a Vieques Bio Bay Tour. So that was like our ultimate reason for going. But we did, we went to San Juan first, and then after we got there, we did a huge push to try and find a tour that we could go on.
Catherine did everything she could to try and find a tour, calling every place. The problem was they didn't accept infants.
Yeah, nobody would accept a baby. And I get it, except that it's frustrating because you see people go on these tours a lot. Not necessarily these tours, but a lot of places, and you always see their babies on there. So, and like, for instance, we tend to have some trouble with her, or had trouble with her in the past because she knew how to swim at such a young age, but she was always being restricted from being able to go places that she could swim. So like, for instance, on a Disney cruise at Castaway Cay, they wouldn't let her go on the slide even though she could swim better than half the kids we saw going down the slide. So that's kind of the problem we run into, is we want to do things that our kids are capable of doing, and we always kind of get thwarted.
So that's often the baby problem on going on vacations anyway. For example, cruises, you cannot take an international cruise with a baby under 1 year old. They just won't let you. Right?
It's like maritime law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The maritime, they are always making laws. No babies. Yeah.
So the problem we were having is we could not find a tour that would accept molasses. So we spent a lot of time back and forth trying to decide, could we find a sitter? Could we call a sitting service? What should we do? And then at the last minute, we found out that Abe's Bio Bay and Snorkeling Tour would accept an infant as long as we had a life vest for her. And so we did have a life vest for her, and we forgot to bring it, which was super frustrating. So
we were checking out Amazon, seeing if we could have something shipped to Puerto Rico, and that it ultimately was not an option.
Yeah, it wouldn't get there in fast enough. They didn't have prime shipping. They didn't have overnight shipping.
Yep. So we found ourselves at the Wave Hotel on Vieques. Beautiful, amazing island, trying to figure a way. We were so close to that Bio Bay Tour, yet so far away because we could not find a life vest for our 3-month-old. And so what did we do? We started shopping at all the shops around Vieques, of which there are not many. But near our hotel was a little, what was it?
Scallywags.
Scallywags, the gift shop. And they did have life vests. However,
I don't know, were they sold out?
they didn't have infants.
Oh, right.
They didn't have infant life vests there.
Right.
But the cashier, we kind of told her our plight and that we were trying to do this. And she happened to have a 3-month-old life vest at home.
Yeah.
So she said she was going to close up shop, but she said that she would go home, get the life vest, and leave it at the front door of Scallywags, and that we could borrow it, and we just had to return it. How awesome is that?
It was fantastic. So, quick note that goes along with this is that, so again, like we said, we were on San Juan. San Juan is the larger island, and we first looked all over San Juan because we found out about Abe's snorkeling tour before we came over to Vieques. So on San Juan, which is obviously the bigger island, we searched everywhere. We tried to get the shipping on San Juan first. None of that worked. So this was not just a San Juan, or not just a Vieques issue, this was a San Juan issue as well. And we tried all the stores. We took a taxi out to the ferry dock before we took the ferry over to Vieques. And we had our taxi driver stop at every single store along the way. So this is really just an important factor for you. If you are traveling there, you need to bring your life vest before in your luggage. So that's just a really important note. A second really important note is you can fly to Vieques or you can take a ferry to Vieques. We loved taking the ferry. It was only $2 a person. It was amazing. It was super fun, super short, super cool. Just a really, really fun way to kind of see different islands and around the area.
It was a $2 ferry ride. I'm pretty sure it was like a $50 taxi ride.
Yeah.
To the ferry though, because it's out in the middle of honestly nowhere. Yeah. Plus, when their hurricane came, it destroyed, I think, their other ferry dock. So they have a makeshift one that's further away, and it was It was not in the best condition.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. It was still cool.
That's another great pointer too, is we stayed in San Juan before we left the main island. We would, if we went back, we would totally recommend staying in Laquilo, which is much closer to the ferry dock. It's also not in the middle of the city. It's a much more rural, just more islandy vibe, beachy vibe. So take that for what you will. So yeah, we took the ferry to Vieques, and again, it was $2. It was super cool. Then we found Scallywags, so now we were all set. We were all set for our trip out to Bio Bay, and we were super excited. So the first thing we did was we went out to Esperanza. That is where you meet your Bio Bay tour. It doesn't really matter which Bio Bay tour you take. Obviously, we have a huge plug and love for Abe's Bio Bay Snorkeling. They've been on the island since the 80s, and they are fantastic. Now, another really important thing to note is that we went in 2019, and that was right after Hurricane Maria. So Hurricane Maria hit the island in 2018, and if you don't know, it destroyed everything, literally. The forests were bare. It looked like the side of North Korea, where everything is chopped down.
So what they had said is not a leaf was left on a tree.
Yeah, they said that you could see people who had houses didn't even know they had neighbors before Hurricane Maria hit, because the forest was so lush and dense, and then after Hurricane Maria hit, you could see everything. People were without power for months and months, 6 months. You know, I knew this really intimately working for an airline. Lots of airlines, we canceled flights for months because the airport's infrastructure just couldn't, it was so damaged that you couldn't even fly there. So the Bio Bay, we were actually really fortunate that we went, and one of the reasons we did choose to go is that the Bio Bay lost all of its ecosystem as well. And so after Hurricane Maria, there was no Bio Bay. It was dead. The ecosystem had completely been annihilated and nothing was lighting up.
But amazingly, nature finds a way, and a year later when we went, the Bio Bay was in full bloom, actually better than prior to the hurricane. The little animals that actually light up are called dinoflagellates.
I think so.
So the amount of luminosity depends on how dark it is at night, and then how many of these little microorganisms live in the water. And they said that, like, prior to this, and I'm pretty sure these are the correct numbers, prior to the hurricane there were about 1 million per gallon of water of these little light up bugs inside in the Bio Bay. And after this, a year later, and that was already like the brightest Bio Bay in the world. A year later, after the Bio Bay had been basically cleaned out, they were up to 2 million per gallon. So it was twice as bright as it was prior to the hurricane. So I guess at least one small silver lining for that tourism spot.
And when we went, some families were still struggling with power or a few issues. Almost everything had been restored to the island. You never would have known that a hurricane hit. On an island, of course, with so much growth and rain, everything was just, it was beautiful again. Not to say that the people still didn't need your help, but it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. So, who wants to talk about one of the first things you need when you go on a Bio Bay tour?
Me.
What was that?
Me.
You need you? Yeah? Yeah? How come?
Because I don't want to miss all the fun.
That's right. I love it.
You need a life vest.
You need a life vest. Yeah, we just covered that, huh? You definitely need a life vest. Now,
For the baby, they have them for everyone else.
right, correct. Yes. What more?
You need mom and dad.
Yeah,
You need mom and dad.
Yeah. Let's talk about lights. What do you need it to be bright outside?
No, you need it dark.
Dark, super dark.
Nothing grows if it's light.
Nothing grows if it glows. Yeah. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you go on the darkest night that you possibly can. So you want to time it. You want to look at the lunar cycles and go when it's a new moon. So new moon meaning that it's just a sliver. So you want it to be as dark as possible, and that will make it the best that you can see.
Also, the one that we went to was the biggest in Vieques.
Yeah, it was also the biggest bay. So the Brightest Bay and the biggest bay.
Yep.
So the bay is completely enclosed. It's not an enclosed body of water, but it's surrounded by, what is it surrounded by?
Mango tree.
Mangrove trees. And there's just one small trickle of water that comes in from the ocean, from the Atlantic Ocean, and that just keeps it circulating. But the mangrove trees surround it. And why are the mangrove trees important?
Because the animals they eat it and then it makes them look bigger than they actually are. And it has more protein than a 16-ounce steak.
A 6 ounce.
6 ounce.
Yeah. So they're algae. They're little algae. That's what they are.
Also, there's a little S in the mango trees for the water to come in, and sometimes other like sharks come in, and then the little dinoflagellates go and eat the leaves that are falling to the bottom, and then they look like 10,000 times bigger.
Yeah. So
than
they
they actually are.
They don't sometimes eat the leaves. That's their whole diet. And yes, the protein and then there's all these chemical reactions that happen, but the main component are the mangrove leaves, and then they make them light up. Awesome. Yes. Open. Yeah. Okay. So what else? Okay. So we started out at Esperanza, like we said. That's the city in Vieques where you meet your tour. And we met, who was our guide?
His name was Steve.
His name was
And
Steve.
the S, he said it was an S as for Steve.
Steve.
So we had lots of S's, so we heard about the sharks that came in. There was another fish we saw. What was the fish we saw in the water? It started with an S, a snook, yeah.
It's huge.
Okay, so let's get to that.
Let's talk about what happened.
All right, so we get to Esperanza. We went to what we affectionately call Bio Bay School. So they taught us what we were going to need to know to go out on the water. We got our life vests, we signed our waivers, we formed our groups that we were gonna get into in our kayaks. Now again, we mentioned that Molasses was just 3 months old, so I was in no position to be holding a 3-month-old and oaring and navigating the boat. So I went with...
Steve.
Yeah, we went with Steve. Widmore, Molasses, and I went with Steve, and Steve steered the boat, which was really cool for us because I got to hear everything up close, and I got to hear it all straight from the mouth. It was a big group, so I don't know if everybody got to hear everything that he said, but I loved being in the boat with him because I could ask him all the questions, and I got to hear everything. And then Gabe.
Yep. I went with
Me.
Miss Pie and Eclair. Yep,
Yes.
so we had our own kayak of 3. Typically only 2 people are in a kayak, but obviously 2 small children kind of equal 1 adult. And
I
then,
paddled.
yep, and then Steve, Catherine, and 2 small ones too. So it was kind of nice because Catherine didn't have to do any work. She just had to hold a baby.
Well, I had to keep her quiet. That was a lot of work.
And keep her quiet.
All right, so
Which we have a hard enough time just shooting a video.
yeah, which she was a
Right.
lot littler than now.
But you know, full disclosure, this little child running around our feet right now really needed a nap today,
Right.
and she did not get her nap.
Nah.
And yeah, so
Nah.
this is in real life here. Okay.
All right. So once we got out to the bay, like we had already covered everything, so we quickly got into our kayaks, and we had met when the sun was starting to set. So by the time we got out there, we got on a big school bus, which we thought was really cool because we really consider this a really awesome world schooling opportunity. So it was just fun that we got to take a school bus.
I remember like the seats on the school bus were really comfy.
Yeah, so because our kids are homeschooled, they've never been on a school bus. So it was really fun for them. The seats were very squishy and comfy.
And the road was narrow.
The road, yeah. Do you remember all the
Trees were going right by us.
Yeah, and they were scraping up against it. That bus had seen a lot of action. So we took the bus out. By the time we got out to the bay, it was like clockwork. We knew what we were doing. We got in our kayaks. We swam out. Steve gave us more Bio Bay school. He told us all about the mangroves, a lot of the stuff that we've gone over. And then we just got to basically kayak around this.
Yeah, we kind of, so he led the group and he would go out to a point and we would all meander towards him in our kayaks. And I had my GoPro all set. It was recording the whole time. But what were we able to see with the GoPro?
Zero.
Nothing. That's the problem, is it's all this blue magical light. Every time an oar goes in the water, it like swishes. It's like this ethereal swirls of light. Everything lights up every time there's a motion in the water. And I was so excited. Turns out, with any regular camera, it's very difficult to film or take pictures of dinoflagellates or Bio Bay.
Yeah, we had the GoPro like in the water, like just thinking, surely it can catch this incredible phenomenon, but you know, it has to be able, it's like trying to capture the northern lights.
Yep.
It's like you have to be able to grab that light and get it through this filter, and a regular camera just doesn't have the capacity to do it.
Supposedly, and we should look it up and share some stuff in the links. Supposedly there's like an iPhone app that will do it. I don't know. I bet there's more tech now because it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
Look down in the comments below. We'll throw down some Amazon links or something for you to check out.
Go ahead.
Also, was the giant fish that looked underwater was a snook?
Yeah. So what makes the creatures light up? Like,
It looked bigger than a snook.
yeah, so do you just go out on the bay and you're like, oh, or can you just look at it from the side of the water and be like, oh, look, there's all these blue lights in the water?
You have to swish the water around, and that makes them light up.
Yeah, something has to create friction. And why are they lighting up?
Because they eat the mangrove trees?
No, so they light up.
So that's how they light up, right? That's the mechanism that creates the ability for them to light up.
But they light up as a defense mechanism because dinoflagellates are super, super tiny, but there's another teeny tiny, I don't know if it's protozoa or whatever that lives in there that eats the dinoflagellates. And so as a defense mechanism, whenever there's a motion in the water, they light up really bright to confuse those little things that are going to eat them as a defense mechanism. So that is why they light up. And how many times can each one light up in a night? 10?
Yay, for the win! Good job!
So they can light up about 10 times, and then they sink down back to the bottom of the bay, and they wait there until the next day when they can recharge and do it all again the next night.
So it takes them 24 hours to recharge, and they have to have the sunlight to do it.
Is that why when we went out there for a long time, we're starting to get back, the light started to fade?
I don't remember that, but yeah, that could be a reason.
I didn't see them ever fade.
So what are some things that cause friction for them to light up? So you talked about motion in the water. So an oar in the water, that's one thing. What's something else?
If somebody's about to eat them, they light up.
Yeah, so you talked about the snook. How could we see the snook? It was pitch black outside.
It's because it caused it in shadow, because it didn't light.
So not a shadow, a trail, right? So as it swam through the water, it lit up all the dinoflagellates around it, right? So it was like a light switch was on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what happened if you put your hands in the water?
They would go up, your hands would go up.
Yeah, and so I always affectionately called it like, it looked like the stars turned upside down. So you could just lift out your hand and your hand would just be full of these twinkling stars in the water. It was so magical. Like, it's really hard to explain just really how, like Gabe used the word ethereal. Like, it was really just so gorgeous and incredible.
Also, the snook looks it looks really big. The snook looks super, super big.
I think it was a really big snook.
Yeah.
Is what you saw. Yeah. So it was a really big fish swimming through there, and it was pretty cool. You'd see smaller school of fish, and it was just they would light up these blue trails everywhere they went. It's kind of like Harry Potter magic if you ran your hands through it. It's like blue trails would just flow.
Just wait a minute. All right, so that was our experience at our Vieques Bio Bay Tour. Big shout out to Abe's. If you do check out our website, which we will link below, they lost everything as well, their family and their business. So they did lose everything. There is a GoFundMe campaign if you feel so inclined. But the best thing you can do is go to San Juan and take their tour and give them the business and then give them a great review and tell them how much you loved them and tell them we sent you.
Yep. So that is it. Hopefully you enjoyed this brief description of the Bio Bay Tour. We loved going there. Check out our blog. Check out our We have some YouTube videos as well, including this one.
Yeah, so thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like this video for more great content. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye, subscribe.